Hello, my dear friends. Welcome once again to my YouTube channel Spark. Today, we are going to discuss about some of the important concepts in social psychology, which is coming under Unit 2 of our syllabus Society, Human Behavior and Communities. And in social psychology, today we are going to discuss about social perception, attitude, attitude formation, change and measurement, communication and theories of collective behavior. So I hope you all are doing well and preparing well for your exam. And if you find this channel useful, please subscribe my channel and please do refer my channel to your friends. And now we can move to session. So we can start with the concept perception. I hope you all are familiar with this concept. Anyway, let us discuss. Perception is a method by which we come to understand ourselves, other people, situations and events. So through the perception we can understand ourselves, other people, situations, events like that. And it is a process through which people receive, organize and interpret information about their environment. So through the perception only we can receive, organize and interpret information about our environment. And perceiving involves becoming aware of world around us and processing information about that world. So simply we can say like perception is a method by which we can understand ourselves and others, and through this process we can receive, organize and interpret information. And next we can move to social perception. Actually, what is social perception? Social perception is how we derive our knowledge of ourselves and others from our experience of ourselves and others. And it is also how we form internal or mental representation of social world. So here the focus is to social concept or social world. So let us see what is social perception. Social perception, that is the processes through which we seek to understand other people. That's what social perception. In social perception, it is to understand other person. And the social perception help us to form opinion and judgment about others. And there are three set of clues which help from the impression of another person. It is first one is person, second is situation surrounding that person, and third one is observed behavior of that person. So that is the most important three clues which help from the impression of other person. That is person and the situation around that person and the observed behavior of that person. And we can say social perception is a process by which we interpret information about another person or other people. For example, managers use social perception when they recruit or hire or train or evaluate employees. Because to arrive at an understanding of the factors that influence social perception, we will consider the characteristics of perceiver, that is a person being perceived and the situation. So it's about social perception. Next we can move to the concept attitude. So what is attitude? In psychology, an attitude refers to a set of emotions, beliefs and behaviors towards a particular object, person, thing or an event. So it is a set of emotion or belief or behavior towards a particular object, person, thing or an event. And an attitude is a general and lasting positive or negative opinion or feelings about some person, object or issue or event. And attitude have three important foundations, that is emotions, behavior and cognition. Emotion, it is a feeling. Behavior is interactions. Cognition is thought. So these are the three important foundations of attitude. And next we can move to attitude formation. What is attitude formation? Actually, attitude formation occurs through either direct experience or persuasion of others or through the media. So we can say that everyone should have to form an attitude, and which is occurs through either direct experience or the persuasion of other people or influence of any media. And this attitude formation can rest on direct experience with attitude object. Mere exposure to an object can influence how much we like or dislike it and thus our attitude toward it. It is a definition by Sejong in the year 1968. And as we mentioned before, attitude have three foundations like emotion, behavior and cognition. And in addition with that, evidence suggests that attitude may develop out of psychological needs, that is motivational foundations, and social interactions, that is social foundation, and genetics, that is biological foundation. And once attitude are formed, they become an integral part of individual's personality and affecting his whole lifestyle of behavior. It's about attitude formation. It is occur through either direct experience or perception of other or through any media. Next is attitude change. Actually, what is attitude change? Study of attitude formation and attitude change is a central preoccupation of the subject social psychology. Actually, in attitude change, some of our attitude of childhood towards any objects or person may change in future due to various reasons or factors. Here, attitude change can be brought about by associating a dislike object with pleasurable feelings and thereby producing change in beliefs and actions. So, here it says that associating disliked object with pleasurable feelings and thereby producing change in beliefs and actions. And some investigators have suggested that the use of fear or punishment associated with an object can succeed in changing the attitude towards that particular object or a person. And a person's beliefs and feelings about an object can be changed by changing individuals' behavior towards it. It's all about attitude change. That is, attitude change can be brought about by associating disliked object with a pleasurable feelings, and we can use a fear or punishment associated with an object, and that can succeed in changing the attitude. Simply we can say a person's beliefs and feelings about an object can be changed by changing individuals' behavior towards it. Next is attitude measurement. How can we measure our attitude? Actually, attitudes are related to self-image and social acceptance. And in order to preserve a positive self-image, people's response may be affected by social desirability. And because they may not well tell about their truth attitude, but answer in a way that they feel socially acceptable. There are various methods of measuring attitudes have been developed. However, all of them have limitations. In particular, the different measures focus on different components of attitude like cognitive, affective and behavioral. So, we can measure the attitude. Attitude measurement can be divided into two basic categories: direct measurement and indirect measurement. In the direct measurement, we can use Likert scale and semantic differential scale. And in the indirect method or indirect measurement, we can use projective techniques. So now we can move to direct measurement. We can discuss two of the direct measurements of attitude, that is Likert scale and semantic differential scale. First we can discuss about Likert scale. Likert scale, named after the creator, American social scientist Rensis Likert. Actually, this Likert scale is quite popular because they are one of the most reliable way to measure opinions, perceptions and behavior of an individual. And there are various kinds of rating scales have been developed to measure attitude directly. That is, person knows their attitude is being studied. And the most widely used is Likert scale in the year 1932. And a Likert scale is used to measure the attitude wherein the respondents are asked to indicate the level of agreement or disagreement with the statement related to the stimulus object. So, to measure the attitude, we use Likert scale where the respondents are asked to indicate the level of their agreement and disagreement towards the statement related to the stimulus objects. And this scale is 5 to 7 point scale, which is used to allow the individual to express how much they agree or disagree with the particular statement. For example, strongly agree, agree, no opinion, disagree, and strongly disagree, like that. And a Likert scale assumes that the strength or intensity of an attitude is linear, that is on a continuum from strongly agree to strongly disagree, and makes an assumption that attitude can be measured. And for example, each of the 5 or 7 responses would have numerical value, and which would use to measure the attitude under investigation. And there are some limitations to this Likert scale: time consuming and misunderstood. Actually, the major limitation of this scaling technique is that time consuming and requires more time as compared to other itemized scaling techniques. This is because each respondent is required to read every statement given in the questionnaire before assigning the numerical value to it. And another limitation of Likert scale that it could be misunderstood at times, especially when the responses are unfavorable. It's all about Likert scale. So next is semantic differential scale. This scale was introduced and mainly developed by US psychologist Charles E. Osgood in the year 1957. And this scale is a 7-point rating scale used to derive the respondent's attitude towards a given object or event. Respondents have to select an appropriate position on the scale between two bipolar adjectives, that is, with the opposite meaning, such as warm or cold, powerful or weak, etc. And semantic differential is widely used in advertising and marketing research, from questionnaires to interviews and focus group. And to prepare a semantic differential scale, you must think of a number of words with opposite meanings that are applicable to describing the subject of the test. For example, you could measure the person's attitude to the word health with the following scale, like weak or strong. And the term to the left and right are polar opposite adjectives. For example, weak is the opposite of strong. There are usually 5 to 7 intervals instead of blank spaces to mark, and you could have radio buttons or boxes to check. And the semantic differential technique reveals information on 3 basic dimensions of attitude, that is evaluation, potency, and activity. Evaluation is concerned with whether the person thinks positively or negatively about the attitude topic, that is dirty or clean, ugly or beautiful, like that. And potency is concerned with how powerful the topic is for that particular respondent or particular person. For example, cruel or kind, strong or weak, like that. And activity is concerned with whether the topic is seen as active or passive for that particular person. For example, active or passive. It's all about semantic differential scale. And now we can move to indirect measurement of attitude, that is projective test. So what is projective test? Actually, to avoid the problem of social desirability, various indirect measures of attitude have been used. Either people are unaware of what is being measured, or they are unable consciously to affect what is being measured. And in this, indirect methods typically involve the use of projective test. Actually, projective test involves presenting a person with an ambiguous or incomplete stimulus. Ambiguous means unclear. For example, picture or words, like that. And this stimulus requires interpretation from the person. Therefore, the person's attitude is inferred from their interpretation of ambiguous or incomplete stimulus. And the basic assumption about these measures of attitude, that is, person will project his or her views, opinions or attitudes to the ambiguous situation, and thus revealing the attitude of person hold. And however, in the indirect method only provide general information and do not offer a precise measurement of attitude strength, since it is qualitative rather than quantitative. And this method of attitude measurement is not objective or scientific, actually, which is a big criticism regarding this test. And examples of projective techniques include the Rorschach-in-Block test, thematic apperception test, that is TAT, and draw a person task. The Rorschach-in-Block test is a type of projective psychological test which is created in the year 1921 by the Swiss psychologist named Hermann Rorschach. And this test is utilized to assess personality and emotional functioning. And this in-block test, in which respondents are asked to look at ambiguous in-block images and then describe what they see. And next is thematic apperception test or TAT, in which a person's unconscious mind, which taps into person's unconscious mind to reveal the repressed aspects of their personality. And this test is a type of projective test and that involves describing ambiguous scenes. It was developed by psychologists Henry A. Murray and Christina D. Morgan in the year 1930. And next is draw a personal test. Here the figure drawings are projective diagnostic technique in which an individual is instructed to draw a person or an object or a situation so that cognitive, interpersonal or psychological functioning can be assessed. And this test can be used to evaluate children and adolescents for variety of purpose, for example self-image, family relationship, cognitive ability, personality, like that. It's all about projective test. Next is collective behavior. What is collective behavior? It is a behavior of a group or crowd of people who can take action together towards a shared goal. So, from the word itself we can understand it is a collective behavior of a group or a crowd to take action together toward a shared goal. And there are three different forms of collective behavior: crowd, mass and public. So, collective behavior is relatively spontaneous behavior and that follows from the formation of a group or crowd of a people who react to a common influence in an ambiguous or unclear situation. And it is a type of social behavior that occurs when people are influenced by others and take action towards a shared goal. So, simply we can understand like collective behavior is a behavior of a group or a crowd of people who can take action together towards a shared goal. Next we are going to discuss about some of the important theories related to collective behavior. First one is contagion theory, and this theory was developed by French scholar Gutzwe Le Bon in his influential book The Crowd, a Study of the Popular Mind. This theory suggests that crowds can exert an effect on individuals, creating mob mentality and encouraging irrational behavior. So, this theory suggests that crowds can have an effect on individuals and causing people to develop mob mentality and lose the ability of reason. So, caught up in the experience of crowd, people are more likely to behave emotionally and irrational. So, it's all about contagion theory, and this theory suggests that crowd can exert an effect on individuals and this create mob mentality and encourage to irrational behavior. Next is convergence theory. Convergence theory argues that behavior of a crowd is not an emergent property of the crowd, but it is a result of like-minded individuals coming together. So this theory argues that the behavior of the crowd is not an emergent property, but it is a result of like-minded individuals coming together. And in other words, if a crowd becomes violent, the convergent theory would argue that this is not because a crowd encouraged violence, but rather than people who wanted to become violent came together in a crowd. It's about convergence theory. Next is emergent norm theory. Actually, this theory combines the above two theories, that is contagion theory and convergence theory. and which is arguing that it is a combination of like-minded individuals, anonymity, and shared emotion that leads to crowd behavior. And this theory takes a symbolic interactionist approach to understand crowd behavior. And it argues that people come together with a specific expectations and norms, but in the interaction that follow the development of the crowd, and new expectations and norms can emerge, and that allowing for the behavior that normally would not take place. It's all about the theories of collective behavior. So, to conclude, today we have discussed about some important concepts which are coming under social psychology, that is social perception, attitude, attitude formation, change and measurement, and then the theories of collective behavior. So, I hope this session will be helpful for you for your preparation. And for the next session, I would like to discuss you with theories of personality, psychoanalytic theory of personality, behavioral and humanistic theories of personality. So don't forget to watch my next video. Keep learning, and if you have any suggestion regarding this session, please give me a comment and support me, and please subscribe my channel if you have not yet subscribed. So see you on next video. Bye.